At dinner that night, my wife calmly announced she wanted a divorce. Before I could even process the words, my 3 daughters started clapping. Finally, one of them said, "Mom deserves to be happy." I didn't argue. I didn't shout. Instead, I placed a sealed envelope on the table. "Before you celebrate," I told them quietly, "you might want to see what's inside." They opened it. And the room went silent. Inside were prison photographs of the man who was actually their biological father. If you enjoy powerful real-life inspired stories like this, make sure to follow the channel and turn on notifications. New stories are posted daily. And tell us in the comments which city you're watching from. Now let me tell you what really happened. My name is Javier Medina Ortega. I'm 52 years old. Until 3 hours ago, I believed I had a solid family. For 3 decades, I built a construction business from nothing. I started as a laborer carrying bricks under the sun in Madrid. Over the years, I founded my own company and eventually became known as one of the city's most reliable developers. My annual income reached around €250,000. At least, that's what it was before everything changed. On Tuesday, April 23, 2024, I returned home after spending 5 exhausting days in Seville supervising a €12 million residential project. My flight landed late, traffic near Barajas Airport was unbearable, and all I wanted was a shower and my own bed. Instead, I walked into a scene that felt rehearsed. My wife, Beatriz Navarro Ruiz, was sitting upright on the living room sofa. Next to her were our 3 daughters, Sylvia, 26, a newly qualified lawyer, Lorena, 24, studying medicine, and Claudia, 23, pursuing business administration. No one smiled. No one said, "Welcome home." Just silence. "Sit down, Javier," Beatriz said in a tone so formal it sounded like a business meeting. I sat across from them, suitcase still near the door. "I've decided I want a divorce," she said. "I'm not happy. I haven't been for years. 28 years of marriage reduced to one sentence." I looked at my daughters, expecting shock. Confusion. Anything. Instead, Sylvia spoke first. "It's better this way, Dad. Mom deserves happiness." Lorena added, "You were always working. She sacrificed everything while you chased money." Then Claudia, my youngest, stood up, walked to the kitchen, and returned holding a bottle of inexpensive champagne. She popped it open. "To Mom's freedom," she shouted. They raised their glasses and toasted. In my house. In front of me. I didn't react. I didn't defend myself. I picked up my suitcase and went upstairs to the guest room. That night, I didn't cry. I planned. As I lay awake, memories replayed in my mind. I met Beatriz in 1996. I was 24, just starting to build my career. She was a nurse. We married quickly. 6 months later, she was pregnant. She left her job and told me she wanted to dedicate herself fully to the children. I worked harder than I ever had in my life. Up at 6 a.m. every day. Construction sites. Suppliers. Contracts. Legal permits. Home after 9 p.m., sometimes later. The girls were often asleep by then. Whenever I felt guilty, Beatriz would say, "You're building our future. I'll handle everything at home." And she did. She handled shaping 3 daughters who grew up believing their father cared more about buildings than birthdays. I remember missing Sylvia's school play in 2007 because I had an urgent meeting for an €8 million contract. I told myself it was for their future. I came home with flowers. She barely looked at me. "Mom said your work matters more," she whispered. That sentence stayed with me for years. In 2009, I bought our 400 square meter house in one of Madrid's best neighborhoods. €600,000. Another €200,000 went into furnishing it exactly how Beatrice wanted. Private schools. €15,000 per year, per daughter. Vacations. Cars. Security. Everything I did, I believed I was doing for them. But that night, when they toasted my exit from their lives, I realized something painful. I had built houses for strangers. And strangers inside my own house. The next morning, I came downstairs calm. They assumed I would beg. Or argue. Instead, I placed the envelope on the table. Since we're talking about truth, I said, let's talk about all of it. Inside were documents I had obtained months earlier, DNA test results, legal records, and prison intake photos. The man in those photos was Beatrice's former partner. The biological father of my daughters. He had been convicted years ago. I had discovered the truth quietly. Confirmed it. Verified everything. And I had stayed silent. Until they decided to celebrate. The color drained from their faces. No one cheered this time. No one raised a glass. For 28 years, I had protected them from a reality that would have destroyed their childhood. And in one evening, they showed me exactly what I meant to them. Ye raha apki story ka continuation, completely rewritten, fresh structure, original wording, taa ku reuse ya copyright ka koi issue na ho. Tone dramatic plus psychological storytelling raka gaya hai. Summer vacations in London, Paris, Rome. Piano classes. Ballet. Tennis coaching. Private English and French tutors. Designer clothes. The newest smartphones the moment they turned 13. When Sylvia was accepted into law school, I bought her a 100 square meter apartment in central Madrid so she wouldn't waste time commuting, €320,000. My business partners called me irrational. I did the same for Lorena when she entered medical school, €290,000. Claudia received her own place too when she started university, €240,000. €850,000 in properties. For daughters who toasted my removal from their lives. But that night, lying awake in the guest room, it wasn't the money that hurt. It was the memories. Every dinner invitation they declined. Every conversation cut short with, "I'm busy." Every time I tried asking about their dreams and got one-word replies. And always Beatrice stepping in softly. "Give them space, Javier. They're young. You're too intense." Years later, I would understand that the distance between us hadn't formed naturally. It had been constructed. Brick by brick. Subtle comment by subtle comment. Around 4:37 a.m., April 24th, I picked up my phone and searched for urgent, discreet paternity testing in Madrid. But that wasn't the beginning of my suspicion. It began on Valentine's Day. February 14th. I arrived early at my office that morning. Before staff. Before noise. Before distractions. There was an envelope waiting outside the glass entrance. No name. No return address. Inside was a single typed page. "The daughters you believe are yours do not share your blood. Verify it before it's too late." Unsigned. At first, I dismissed it as sabotage. Business rivals exist. Envy exists. I destroyed the letter. But doubt, once planted, grows quietly. That evening, as Beatrice hummed in the kitchen, I studied the framed photos in the hallway. 3 daughters. All with her nose. Her cheekbones. Her chin. None with mine. I convinced myself genetics were unpredictable. 3 days later, in the basement, I found the box. Marked, private. Do not touch. Inside were photographs. Beatrice. Younger. With a man I had never seen. Tattooed arms. Military haircut. Dangerous smile. In one photo, she rested her hand over her stomach while he stood behind her, smiling at it. The dates written on the back were devastating. August 1997. September 1997. November 1997. Sylvia was born in November 1997. We had married in February. More photos followed. 1999, 2002. Each pregnancy timeline matched. At the bottom of the box was a handwritten note. I can't be a father right now. I have problems. Handle it. I'll come back when things settle. R. That initial. R. I photographed everything. Resealed the box. Said nothing. From that day forward, I began observing. Claudia casually mentioned she was O negative blood type. Beatrice is O negative. I am a positive. I researched genetics. The probability was practically non-existent. Still, Beatrice showed no nervousness when I asked. She smiled. Always smiling. After the divorce celebration, I stopped doubting. I contacted my old university friend and lawyer, Tomas Herrera Hill. I asked for the most discreet investigator he trusted. He gave me the name Hector Campos. We met in a small cafe far from my neighborhood. I told him everything. He listened without emotion. If we proceed, he said, there is no going back. There was already no going back. He required biological samples, hair roots, saliva traces, personal items. The opportunity came during a so-called civilized family lunch to discuss divorce terms. They laughed. They planned their futures. They assumed I would comply. While they talked, I collected what I needed. A used tissue. Hair from a brush. A glass with lipstick on the rim. Within days, the samples were in the lab. 2 weeks later, my phone rang. We met again. Hector placed a thick envelope on the table. All 3 tests show 0% compatibility, he said calmly. There is no biological relationship. Even expecting it, hearing it spoken with scientific certainty felt like falling through empty space. Then he showed me another document. A mugshot. The same man from the photographs. His name, Ricardo Lopez Santos. Currently serving a 40-year sentence in Soto del Rio prison. Convicted in 2003 for aggravated homicide related to a drug trafficking dispute. I hadn't just raised children who weren't mine. I had raised the daughters of a convicted murderer. Newspaper clippings. Court transcripts. Prison intake records. Every page confirmed it. Beatrice hadn't just lied. She had engineered an entirely different life for herself, funded by me. And the man she chose over me? He was behind bars. When I left that cafe, I didn't feel rage. I felt clarity. For 28 years, I had been the provider. The protector. The silent investor in a story that was never mine. Now I had evidence. And for the first time in decades, I had control. The crime took place on June 19, 2003, Hector had explained earlier that week, reading from the official court summary. An abandoned warehouse on the outskirts of Barcelona. A dispute over a drug debt. 17 stab wounds. 17. 9 to the torso. 5 to the neck. 3 to the face. The biological father of the 3 women sitting at my dinner table had not simply killed a man. He had butchered him. Ricardo Lopez Santos was sentenced to 40 years. Because of repeated violent incidents inside prison, his earliest parole eligibility had been pushed far into the future. He would not walk free for decades. That information had given me a strange kind of relief. The monster would remain behind bars. But his blood was sitting across from me, laughing about how boring I was. Back at the dinner table on November 9th, the laughter had already died. Claudia's voice shook. This is fake. You made this up. I remained seated. There are 3 independent DNA analyses, I said calmly. All certified. All identical. 0% compatibility. Lorena's hands trembled as she flipped through the pages. Sylvia, the lawyer, searched desperately for a technical flaw. A procedural error. A loophole. There must be a mistake in the chain of custody, she muttered. There isn't. Then I slid forward the section marked in red. Criminal record. Court transcripts. Crime scene summaries. And finally, the photograph. Ricardo, older now. Gray hair. Scar above the eyebrow. Prison uniform. Beatriz hadn't spoken yet. She was staring at the pregnancy certificate dated August 1996. The date said everything. She had already been pregnant before she met me. Nothing about our chance encounter had been chance. Sylvia looked up first. Mom. No answer. Mom, who is he? Beatriz inhaled slowly. For the first time in 28 years, I saw fear in her eyes. It was a mistake, she whispered. A mistake. I repeated softly. 3 pregnancies over 6 years is not a mistake. It's a strategy. Lorena pushed back her chair abruptly. You're lying. Dad, you're trying to punish us. I leaned forward slightly. If I wanted revenge, I would have filed criminal fraud charges months ago. That sentence froze everyone. Sylvia's legal training kicked in immediately. Fraud, she said carefully. Yes. Paternity misrepresentation. Financial deception. Nearly 3 decades of economic support under false pretenses. Claudia's eyes filled with tears. You're not our father, she asked. I paused before answering. I raised you. I paid for everything. I protected you. I showed up whenever you needed money. I let the silence stretch. But biologically? No. The room felt smaller. The air heavier. Beatriz finally spoke louder. I did what I had to do, she snapped, breaking her silence. Ricardo couldn't provide stability. He was unstable. Dangerous. I chose security for my daughters. You chose funding, I corrected. She stood up suddenly. I gave you a family. You were never home. You lived at construction sites. And yet, I said evenly, I was home enough to sign every tuition payment. Every property deed. Every vacation invoice. Sylvia was flipping through the dossier again. When did you find out? She asked quietly. 2 months ago. And you just waited? Yes. Why? I looked at each of them in turn. Because I wanted to see who you really were without knowing the truth. Claudia collapsed back into her chair. This can't be real. It is. Lorena whispered, almost to herself, Ricardo Lopez Santos. The name tasted poisonous in the air. Sylvia looked at her mother again. You knew this whole time. Beatriz didn't answer directly. I did what any mother would do to survive, she said defensively. No, Sylvia replied slowly. Not any mother. That was the first crack. Not in me. In them. I pushed the blue divorce folder back across the table toward Beatriz. You wanted 50% of the house. Spousal support for 10 years. Continued financial assistance for the girls. I folded my hands calmly. That will not be happening. Beatriz's face hardened. You can't deny your responsibilities. I have already fulfilled them, I said. For 28 years. Sylvia swallowed. If you go to court with this, it will destroy Mom. That depends, I answered. On whether she tries to destroy me first. The power dynamic had shifted completely. They felt it. Beatrice finally sat down again, slower this time. What do you want? She asked. A simple question. For weeks, I had asked myself the same thing. Revenge? Compensation? Public humiliation? In that moment, I realized I wanted something far simpler. I want the divorce filed quietly, I said. No alimony. No claim over my companies. No attempt to access transferred assets. Sylvia's head snapped up at that. Transferred assets. I didn't elaborate. Sign a clean separation. You keep your personal belongings. The apartments are already in your names, I will not contest those. 3 properties worth €850,000. A final gift. But from this day forward, I continued, financial support ends. Claudia began crying openly. Lorena looked shattered. Sylvia was calculating consequences. Beatrice's voice trembled with restrained fury. You're abandoning them. I met her gaze. No. You did that in 1996. The dinner ended without dessert. No one touched the wine again. They left in silence. Beatrice remained behind in the living room long after the girls drove away. She didn't scream. She didn't beg. She just sat there staring at nothing. For the first time since the divorce announcement, she looked uncertain. Small. I went upstairs to the guest room again that night. But this time, I slept. Deeply.